We need to remember that not everything actually has a wireless network interface associated with it. Most of our devices traditionally have had what? An Ethernet port, right? And so I might have devices, though, that are in a peripheral network. They're in a guardhouse. They're in a second building, something like that, that does not have a wired connection to the main office that I want to work with. However, there is an access point that is within range of that secondary building, and I would like these devices to be able to connect to that physical network and all the goods behind it, including the internet and everything else, without having to drag a wire over it. Man, if there was just some way that I could somehow get all those devices connected to the access point without having to install an individual wireless network card on every one of those devices. And some devices, like printers and things like that, that might not be possible. Well, you can, but the trick is to introduce what's called a work group bridge, WGB, a work group bridge. So the point of a work group bridge is to provide essentially a wireless representative for this uh, isolated local area network over here to get connected to the local area network that is hooked up to the wired local area network. So the workgroup bridge is essentially going to live on this left-hand side. It's going to live in the remote network, but it's going to be able to have a wireless connection to the access point. Again, representing that network, the ambassador of that network. And so what ends up happening, of course, is when a device recognizes that it needs to connect to something outside of itself, not something on the local area network, that will transmit through to the wireless um, the wireless workgroup bridge. The workgroup bridge will then participate just like an individual client connecting to the access point, which can then forward that on to the switch that's there in the wired network, which then can enable access to the internet, to servers, to whatever it is that we need to have access to. And then we can route and then switch it back, work it through the access point, and get it to come back to that device without them ever having to have their own personal network interface that is wireless based. So that's a workgroup bridge. Very specialized circumstance. Again, you wouldn't want to support too many devices on this. Generally, I think of it as about 10 devices is about max that you'd want to support per workgroup bridge. Because again, it's like funneling all those devices through one network interface when it comes to gaining access to the wireless network that gets you access to the big wired network behind it. So again, that's going to be a point of isolation, a bottleneck, and could easily overload a system if it's not managed properly, because that is acting as a single network interface for that remote network.